Today we're diving into solo female travel in Nepal.
Sounds exciting.
It is. And to guide us, we have insights from David Ways,
Ah, the Nepal guidebook author.
the one and only. He also runs the Longest Way Home travel website.
I've heard of it.
It's a treasure trove of info, last updated March 11th, 2025. Now, Nepal's often considered a safe haven for solo female travelers.
Safer than India, even.
That's the general consensus, yeah.
Interesting. Why is that?
It's a bit of a paradox, actually. Their conservative society, coupled with a generally open culture, creates a unique environment.
So conservative values actually provide a sense of security.
In a way, yes. But of course, precautions are still essential.
Of course, you can't be too careful. So, where do we start? What's the lay of the land for women in Nepal?
Great question. Let's start with how women are generally treated.
Good place to begin. Sets the tone for everything else.
Exactly.
Okay, so Nepal's a melting pot of cultures, right? Hindu majority, but you've got Buddhists, various ethnic groups.
And the caste system still looms large.
Right, so how do women fit into all of that?
Well, Ways emphasizes that women play a vital role in Nepali society.
But their experiences are diverse, I imagine.
Definitely. But what's interesting is that he observes female tourists, solo or not, are generally respected.
That's good to hear. So no need to worry about harassment then.
Well, not so fast. While physical sexual harassment is rare, Ways does highlight the potential for what he calls Casanova-like behavior from some Nepali men.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. What does he mean by that?
It's not always overt or aggressive.
Or subtle then.
Exactly. It could be romantic advances from guides, for instance.
I see. So there are layers to this. What motivates this behavior?
Ways points to a few factors, unemployment being one.
Makes sense they might see an opportunity.
Right. Or aspirations to leave Nepal.
So a foreign woman could represent a ticket out.
Exactly. And sometimes it's simply about financial gain.
Sad, but realistic.
And then there's the conservative dress code to consider.
Right, you mentioned that earlier. How does that play into things?
Well, revealing clothing can attract unwanted attention. And that applies to both men and women.
So blending in is key. But it's not just about personal safety, is it? There's this economic angle, too.
You hit the nail on the head. It's about understanding those potential power imbalances.
Ways really dives deep into the nuances, doesn't he?
He does. He even mentions cases where some men might try to prolong a trek or sell things to a woman they're involved with.
That's a bit concerning. Sounds like knowing how to set boundaries, politely but firmly, is crucial.
Absolutely. And maybe even having an exit strategy if things get uncomfortable.
Smart thinking. So it's about awareness, precaution, and a bit of street smarts. Anything else we should keep in mind?
Well, Ways brings up another important point.
Go on.
The prevalence of HIV and STDs in Nepal.
Oh, right. It's easy to forget about those things when you're caught up in the excitement of travel.
Exactly. But awareness and protection are vital no matter where you go.
A good reminder.
It is. Okay, so we've covered the social landscape, potential risks, and some practical precautions. What's next?
Well, we've danced around it a bit, but let's dive into appropriate clothing.
That conservative dress code you mentioned earlier?
Yes. Ways really stresses its importance.
What are we talking specifically? What should someone pack?
Think covering breasts, buttocks, and upper legs.
Standard conservative attire. Anything else?
Here's a surprising one. Ways says tight leggings are a common complaint.
Really? I wouldn't have thought that.
They might be comfortable, but...
But they reveal the body's contours.
Exactly. Which can be considered inappropriate.
So loose-fitting clothes are a safer bet.
Definitely. It's fascinating how something so seemingly simple can have such cultural implications.
It is. It's a good reminder to research those nuances before you go. Anything else we should pack, aside from modest clothing?
Ways is big on practicality. He suggests packing a torch.
A torch?
Yeah, because Nepal has frequent power outages.
Oh, right. I've heard about that.
Plus, it can be useful for walking back to your accommodation late at night.
Good point. Speaking of accommodation, any recommendations from Ways on safe and comfortable places to stay?
He has some. He's a big advocate for booking a mid-range or higher recommended hotel upon arrival.
Especially for your first time in Nepal.
Right. He stresses reading reviews and choosing a place with a good location.
Safety and comfort over absolute cheapest option.
Exactly. And he suggests airport pickups, which are pretty common.
Makes sense, especially for a first-time visitor.
Yeah. And he even gets more specific. For Kathmandu, he suggests the Thamel and Paknajol areas.
Okay, good to know. What about other cities?
In Pokhara, he recommends lakeside. And in Chitwan, staying along the main road in Saraha.
Great. So we have some specific areas to focus on. That takes some of the guesswork out of planning.
Exactly. Now, what about safety tips once you're actually at the hotel?
Good question. What does Waze recommend?
He offers some good advice, and some of it solo men could benefit from too, honestly.
Oh, like what?
He says to sign hotel registers using a title like Mrs. or Miss, and just your last name, no first name.
Interesting. Create that subtle layer of privacy.
Right. He also says ask for help with luggage at reception, even if you don't need it.
So you don't look alone.
Exactly. And use your work address on luggage tags, not your home one.
Clever. What else?
Here's a really interesting one. He suggests wearing a fake wedding band.
Oh, wow. To deter unwanted attention.
Exactly. Subtle, but it can be effective. He also emphasizes checking that your room door locks securely.
Of course, that's basic safety anywhere.
Right, but he adds, if you come back and find it open, don't go in.
Good point. Easy to assume the best, but better to be safe.
Exactly. Go back to reception and ask for someone to come with you.
Makes sense. Now let's talk about trekking. Nepal's famous for it,
Yeah.
but is it safe for solo women?
That's where things get interesting. In March 2023, the Nepal Tourism Board actually banned solo trekking.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Guides are now mandatory, apparently, for safety reasons.
So even if you're an experienced trekker, no going solo.
That seems to be the rule. Waze mentions some treks might not require a guide, but
He advises against it.
strongly, especially for first-timers or in winter.
So solo trekking's out. What about finding a guide, especially as a solo female traveler? That
Yeah.
dynamic adds another layer.
Waze stresses choosing the right guide is crucial.
How do you go about doing that?
He recommends meeting several from different agencies before deciding.
Okay, good advice. What should you ask them?
Ask about their background, their references, their contact information. Don't be shy. It's your safety.
So due diligence is key.
Yeah.
Any red flags to watch out for?
He doesn't go into specifics, but he offers a brilliant safety tip. Take a photo of your guide's face, their license, and your itinerary,
Okay.
and tell them you're sending it to your family and a friend in Nepal.
Oh, I like that. Subtle accountability without being confrontational.
Exactly. It sets a tone without implying distrust.
Smart. Now, we've covered a lot of ground on safety, but solo travel isn't just about avoiding the bad stuff. What about connecting with other women? Does Waze recommend that?
He does. He suggests seeking out lively accommodations with social scenes.
Okay, so places where you're likely to meet other travelers.
Exactly. Think guest houses, restaurants, cafes, natural spots to strike up conversations.
It's about finding those spaces where connections happen organically.
Yes. And Waze has another interesting suggestion. Family-run guest houses.
How so?
He says they can be fantastic for connecting with Nepali women.
Because you're interacting with the family directly.
Right. And often those friendships extend into the household's social circle.
That's a lovely thought. Gives you a much richer cultural experience.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that solo travel isn't just about independence. It's about the potential for deeper, more meaningful connections.
Now, let's touch on a topic that's often a concern for women traveling alone. Menstruation.
Ah, right. A sensitive topic, especially in Nepal.
Exactly. Given its cultural sensitivities, is this something that's particularly challenging?
Waze acknowledges it's sensitive. He mentions the past practice of women staying inside during their period.
And the illegal chapati huts.
Right. But he assures us that foreign tourists aren't subject to those restrictions.
So no need to worry about those cultural practices affecting your trip.
Not according to Waze. However, he does mention many Nepali men might be uncomfortable talking about it.
I see. So it's about being mindful of those sensitivities.
Yes.
What about the practicalities? Are menstrual products readily available?
Waze says panty liners are common in supermarkets.
Okay, so no problem there. What about tampons?
He says those are less common, so bring enough for your whole trip if you use them.
Good to know. Always better to be prepared, especially when it comes to something so essential.
Absolutely. It's one less thing to worry about so you can focus on enjoying your trip. So, we talked about those potential romantic advances, especially from guides. Waze actually offers some good advice on how to handle that during a trek.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. You're kind of in a vulnerable position, relying on this person.
Exactly. He says be upfront if their advances are unwelcome.
Okay, so clear communication from the start. But how do you do that without, making it super awkward?
He recommends having a conversation early on. Establish those boundaries respectfully but firmly.
I see. So, what What would you say?
You could say something like, hey, I'm really focused on the trekking experience this time, not looking for romance.
Ah, I get it. Sets the tone from the get-go.
Right. And he also says to be mindful of the signals you're sending, verbally and non-verbally.
Oh, that's interesting. So, like, what do you mean?
Avoid excessive physical contact or, overly personal conversations.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance, being friendly and open to cultural exchange, but also protecting your personal space. It is. So reading those subtle social cues is important. But what if a guide continues to make unwanted advances, even after you've tried to set boundaries?
Waze is pretty clear on this. He says, address it directly with the trekking agency.
Don't suffer in silence.
Exactly. It's your experience. You have the right to feel safe and respected.
Good advice. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Talk about transportation. Does Waze have any tips for getting around safely?
He does, and some of them apply to both men and women traveling solo.
Oh, good to know. Like,
His top tip is avoid traveling alone at night, especially in remote areas.
okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
What if you have to use public transportation?
Try to sit near other women or families if you can.
Good idea. What about taxis? Any specific advice there?
Choose reputable companies.
Of course.
And always confirm the fare before you start the journey.
Yeah, to avoid any disputes or surprises later. Anything else?
Keep a map or a GPS handy so you can follow the route and make sure you're going the right way.
It's about staying in control of the situation.
Exactly. And if at any point you start to feel unsafe, don't hesitate to ask the driver to stop.
And let you out in a public area.
Right. Better safe than sorry, even if it means being a little assertive.
Okay, so we've talked about all these precautions, but solo travel can also be about, connecting with others.
Definitely. Waze has some good suggestions for meeting people and making friends on the road.
I like what?
He recommends joining group tours or activities.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Takes the pressure off having to initiate conversations.
Exactly. And you have that shared experience to bond over.
Yeah, group tours can be a great way to dip your toes into the social scene,
Ugh.
especially if you're feeling a bit hesitant.
Right. He also suggests checking out local cafes and restaurants.
Ah, those can be hums for travelers and expats.
Right. Just strike up a conversation with someone who looks interesting. You never know what kind of adventure might come out of it.
That spontaneity is part of the magic of solo travel, right?
Totally.
Now, what about connecting with local people? Is that something that's, appropriate, even possible?
Waze thinks so. And he circles back to those family-run guest houses.
Right, right. It's not just about a place to stay. You're interacting with the family, sharing meals.
Exactly. Those connections can be incredibly enriching.
It's those authentic experiences that really stick with you, right?
Definitely.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit now. Talk about personal safety in, like, public spaces,
Yeah, another valid concern.
especially for women. What does Waze have to say about staying safe when you're out and about?
He really emphasizes projecting confidence and awareness.
Okay, so like walk with purpose.
Exactly. Avoid walking alone at night, especially in dimly lit or deserted areas.
Good point.
And be mindful of your belongings. Don't flash cash or expensive jewelry.
Basically, don't make yourself an easy target.
Right. Be street smart. But even with all the precautions in the world, sometimes you just get a bad feeling.
Yeah, what do you do then?
Waze says trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is.
So don't ignore those feelings.
No. Cross the street, walk into a shop, ask a local for help.
You're not being paranoid, you're being cautious.
Exactly. And it's important to acknowledge that unwanted attention from men can be a reality.
Yeah, unfortunately. Even in a relatively safe country like Nepal.
Right.
So what does Waze recommend for dealing with, say, catcalls or other forms of harassment?
He says ignore them. Engaging just encourages them.
Walk with purpose. Don't make eye contact. Project that you're not an easy target.
Right. But if someone persists, he says to firmly and loudly say no.
Or call for help.
Yes. Don't be afraid to make a scene if you need to.
It's a good reminder that you have the right to defend yourself. Seek help if you feel threatened. Anything else?
He suggests learning a few basic Nepali phrases.
Oh, like what?
Things like, leave me alone, or I need help.
Even a little bit of the local language could be empowering.
It can. Plus, it shows you're making an effort to respect their culture.
That's a great point. It's about that balance, isn't it? Cultural sensitivity and personal safety.
Exactly. Okay, let's lighten things up a bit. Talk about shopping. Nepal's got those amazing markets.
It does. But navigating them alone can feel a bit overwhelming. What does Waze suggest?
He recommends shopping during daylight hours.
When it's busier. Safety in numbers.
Right. And as always, be aware of your surroundings. Keep an eye on your belongings.
Pickpockets can be a problem.
They can. And then there's the whole bargaining thing.
Oh, right. Any advice there?
He says start low
Okay.
and be ready to walk away if you're not happy with the price.
Don't feel pressured.
Exactly. Shopping should be enjoyable, not stressful.
Good advice.
Yeah.
It's about knowing your worth. Anything else on the shopping front?
He suggests supporting local artisans and fair trade businesses when you can.
Ah, yes. It's about making those responsible travel choices.
Right, benefiting the communities you visit. Now, switching gears again, let's talk about the emotional side of solo travel.
Yeah, loneliness can be a real challenge, especially in a culture that's so different from your own.
Ways acknowledges that. He says it's part of the experience.
But it's not always easy.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But he reframes it, sees it as an opportunity for self-reflection and growth.
I like that.
He encourages travelers to embrace those moments of solitude.
To connect with yourself on a deeper level.
Exactly. And he suggests activities like journaling, meditation, or spending time in nature.
To quiet the mind and listen to your inner voice. Those are all great for recharging. But what about those times when you really crave connection with others?
He reminds us that even when traveling solo, we're not completely alone. Reach out to friends and family back home.
Yeah, even a quick text or call can make a difference.
It can. And he also suggests connecting with other travelers through social media groups, online forums.
Or travel apps, there are so many out there these days.
There are. It's a great way to find travel buddies, share tips.
Build that sense of community. It's amazing how technology can connect us, even when we're thousands of miles apart.
It really is. Now let's talk about another rewarding aspect of solo travel cultural immersion.
Ah, yes. How can you engage with the local culture respectfully and authentically?
Ways emphasizes approaching it with humility, curiosity, and an open mind.
Okay, so do your research beforehand. Learn about Nepali customs and traditions.
Exactly. Be respectful of local beliefs and practices.
It's about being a responsible and mindful traveler, not just a tourist checking things off a list.
Right. So what are some ways to engage on that deeper level?
Well, ways suggest visiting temples and monasteries, attending local festivals.
Trying traditional foods, even learning a few basic Nepali phrases.
It's about experiencing the richness of the culture firsthand.
Yes. And what about interacting with locals?
Is that encouraged? Or is
Well,
it considered intrusive?
Ways encourages it, as long as it's respectful. Be approachable, friendly, strike up conversations.
Show genuine interest in people's lives.
Exactly. Even offering a helping hand, if appropriate.
It's those small gestures that can make a difference.
They can. And remember, cultural immersion is a two-way street. Share your own culture with the people you meet.
It's about fostering that understanding, that appreciation.
Exactly. And speaking of emotions, we touched on loneliness earlier, but there's another side to that coin.
What do you mean?
Solo travel, especially in a place as different as Nepal, can be really transformative.
It can. It forces you to grow, to step outside your comfort zone.
Ways highlights that sense of freedom and independence. You're setting your own itinerary, exploring at your own pace.
You're not having to compromise or accommodate anyone else.
Right. It's about embracing the freedom to be yourself. And as he points out, solo travel can really push your boundaries.
You might surprise yourself with what you're capable of.
You might. What about connecting with the people and places you visit? Do you think solo travel enhances that?
I think it does. You're more likely to have those chance encounters, those deeper conversations, when you're not with a companion.
You're more present.
More open to new experiences.
Exactly. And Ways believes all these experiences, the challenges, the connections, the self-discovery, it leads to greater self-confidence.
A broader worldview.
Yes. And a deeper appreciation for different cultures and ways of life.
It's more than just a trip. It's a journey of self-transformation.
It really is. Okay, let's get practical for a minute. Talk about money. Budgeting is crucial, especially when you're traveling solo.
Absolutely. What does Waze recommend?
He's big on setting a budget in advance and tracking your expenses.
Makes sense. Helps you stay on track?
It does. What about practical tips for managing money while you're in Nepal?
Good question. What does he say?
Carry a mix of cash and cards?
Okay, so be prepared for both scenarios.
Right. Cards are widely accepted in cities and tourist hubs.
But cash is still king in more rural areas.
Exactly. What about ATMs?
Yeah, any tips there?
Use ATMs affiliated with reputable banks.
Okay,
And avoid those currency exchanges at airports. They usually give you a terrible rate.
good to know.
Huh.
And as always, watch out for scams.
Yes, never give out your PIN or personal financial information.
Common sense. But it's easy to let your guard down when you're in a new place.
It is.
Okay, let's talk about packing now. What's Way's advice for solo female travelers?
He's all about packing light, bringing only the essentials.
Especially if you're trekking.
Right, you'll be carrying everything on your back, so every ounce counts.
Functionality over fashion.
Definitely. Pack versatile clothing that can be layered.
The weather in Nepal can be unpredictable, right?
It can. Comfortable walking shoes are a must.
Of course.
And a raincoat, a hat, sunscreen.
Essentials for any traveler. Does he have any specific recommendations for women?
He suggests bringing a scarf or a shawl.
That's versatile. You can use it for so many things.
Exactly. Covering your head when entering temples, protecting yourself from the sun or dust.
It's all about packing smart.
It is. Now, communication. Nepal has its own language and customs.
Right. So how do you overcome those language barriers?
Ways encourages learning a few basic Nepali phrases.
Greetings, thank yous, simple questions.
Right. Even a small effort goes a long way.
It shows respect. Helps you build rapport.
Exactly. And for more complex communication, a phrase book or a translation app can be helpful.
Those are good to have. But what about those times when, despite your best efforts, communication just breaks down?
Ways says patience and understanding are key. A smile and sense of humor can go a long way.
It's about embracing those moments of cultural difference.
It is. It's all part of the adventure. It really is all part of the adventure. And, we talked about trekking earlier.
Yeah, with the whole mandatory guide thing now.
Right, but let's talk about it for women specifically. What are some things they should consider if they want to hit the trails in Nepal?
That's a great question. Trekking's so popular there. What insights does Waze offer?
Well, besides the guide, he says choose a trek that's right for you. Your fitness level, your experience.
Yeah, don't jump into the Annapurna circuit if you've never trekked before.
Exactly. Be realistic about your abilities. Choose something you'll enjoy.
Good point. What about packing for a trek? Any specific recommendations from Waze?
He's all about packing light, essentials only, because,
You're carrying everything on your back.
Right. Every ounce counts. He suggests investing in a good backpack, one that fits you properly.
Okay, good backpack check. What else?
Layers of clothing, mountain weather can be unpredictable.
So be prepared for anything.
Exactly. And of course, good hiking boots.
Essential.
Waterproof jacket, hat for sun protection.
Those are must-haves for any trekker. What about safety? Anything specific to trekking?
Waze reminds us about altitude sickness. It's a real concern at higher elevations.
Right.
He says acclimatize properly, ascend slowly, stay hydrated.
And if you start feeling sick,
Headache, nausea, dizziness, descend immediately. Get medical attention.
don't mess around with altitude sickness.
Nope, it can be dangerous. He also suggests letting someone know your itinerary, your expected return date.
Just in case.
Exactly. And maybe carry a whistle or a personal alarm.
Smart. Be prepared for the unexpected. Okay, we've covered a lot of practical tips, but what about feeling safe? Emotionally safe.
Waze talks about that too. He says feeling safe, both physically and emotionally, is essential for enjoying any trip.
Absolutely. But how do you cultivate that sense of safety, especially when you're alone in a new place?
He emphasizes trusting your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is.
Don't ignore that gut feeling.
No. Remove yourself from the situation. Seek help, whatever you need to do.
And remember, most Nepali people are kind and helpful.
They are. Don't be afraid to ask for directions, recommendations, whatever.
Yeah, to tap into that sense of community. Okay, let's talk about something a little different now, the spiritual side of travel. Nepal's known for its spiritual heritage, right?
It is. Temples, monasteries, meditation retreats.
Exactly. Does Waze offer any insights on how solo female travelers can engage with this aspect of Nepali culture?
He does. He suggests visiting those temples and monasteries, observing religious ceremonies.
Maybe even try a meditation retreat.
Yes. It's a chance to glimpse the spiritual heart of Nepal and to reflect, to look inward.
What about interacting with monks or spiritual teachers? Is that something that's, encouraged?
Waze advises approaching those interactions with respect, with humility.
Ask questions, listen.
Exactly. Be open to learning. So as we wrap up, it's good to circle back to something we talked about earlier, the transformative power of solo travel.
What are Waze's final words of wisdom for women traveling to Nepal alone?
He encourages them to embrace the adventure, to push their boundaries, to allow themselves to be changed by the experience.
It's not just about seeing new places, it's about discovering new parts of yourself.
Beautifully said. And he reminds us to stay informed, be prepared for the unexpected, trust your instincts,
And most importantly,
savor every moment, create memories that will last a lifetime.
that's a perfect way to sum it up. Solo female travel in Nepal, it's adventure, cultural immersion, personal growth, spiritual exploration.
All rolled into one unforgettable experience. And for those who want to learn more, we highly recommend checking out David Way's The Longest Way Home Nepal travel website.
It's a wealth of information for planning your trip. And be sure to check out his guidebooks too. Nepal Guidebook, Trekking in Nepal, and Kathmandu Valley Heritage Walks.
They're available in print and digital formats. So whether you're an experienced traveler or just starting out, Nepal awaits, with open arms and a world of possibilities.
That's it for our exploration of solo female travel in Nepal. We hope you found it insightful, empowering, and inspiring. Until next time, happy travels.